I think the one big beautiful bill just made co-living completely mandatory. Okay. And here's why. I want to give you some updates on how the big beautiful bill that was just passed by the Senate, by the House, and is now into law and was signed into law on July 4th by Trump, and how it's going to affect co-living in my opinion. Curious your thoughts on this too. Number one, obviously we've all heard about it. I think AOC came out and was like, I will never support this bill. And her one main thing that she was standing on as she was ranting and raving was there's cuts to Medicaid. There's cuts to the SNAP program. And look, guys, whether you agree or disagree that should happen or not happen, I want to say one more thing. That is definitely going to put a population that is at risk, already more at risk. And so instead of, they are going to have less money for rent. And if they have less money for rent, they're going to be looking for even cheaper alternatives. And there is nothing cheaper in any market than co-living. And if you're out there and you're with me and you're on this mission with me to provide 1 million affordable housing units, then great. You're going to be the one that's going to win because of this, because more people are going to need this. There's also been cuts. I think I already said this is going cuts to Medicaid. Here's the truth. We have a huge older population. I can't tell you how many 50 and 60 and even some 70-year-olds we have living in co-living houses. They're on fixed income. They don't make enough from Social Security, these other sources. So they're going to be just forced even more and more. And there's going to be millions of people that are going to get some of these benefits cut. They're going to be forced into cheaper housing alternatives. And no one else is creating at scale those housing alternatives other than you and me in the co-living space. And if you're not doing it yet, you should get on the train and do it now, right? And start the journey. The one big beautiful bill also cut green incentives. So incentives for, things like energy efficient heat pumps, and it cut rebates for energy efficient hot water heaters and building these. So what is that ultimately going to do? Ultimately, that's going to rise utilities, right? Without these rebates, builders or people who are retrofitting or upfitting or rehabbing a home are either going to not buy that stuff and just go with something cheaper that's going to cost a lot more in utilities, which if someone's renting a house or an apartment, guess who pays those higher utilities? The person renting does, right? Or it's just going to be more expensive to build those things because they're going to put that same thing that they would in, the same energy efficient thing, but now it costs more because there's no rebate on it. So either way, we lose, and rents are going to have to increase and costs of building are going to have to go up. And so what does that do, guys? That just drives even more power, even more people to a need for affordable housing. I don't see anything really in this bill that is going to really support and help and make affordable housing easier. I think the one thing that it does do, and this is my number 3, is that it does incentivize. There are some credits and some different incentives for converting office space, converting other spaces into housing. So maybe that was their stab at trying to solve affordable housing with this bill. It's not extremely explicit, but it is something that is in the bill, and I think will support developers coming in and saying, hey, we've got an empty office building, let's convert it. Now, I think one of the best things for people to convert these buildings into are co-living buildings. So I think we're going to see a lot of people start to look at that. We're already seeing big developments in Raleigh. We're seeing big developments actually here in Charlotte. A big one just went down in Asheville of people taking actual big commercial space and converting it or building from the ground up as co-living. Now, this one big beautiful bill takes the national debt from 2.4 trillion. Sorry, did I say million? To 2.8 trillion. So let's just little lesson here. What happens when the U.S. government takes on more debt when it's already at almost 200% of GDP, right? A healthy amount of debt might be 100% of GDP or 120% of GDP, but we're going to 200% of our GDP, ladies and gentlemen. So what does that do? Well, what it does is it's like anything else. Imagine I came to you and I said, hey, Mr. or Mrs. YouTube viewer, I need $100,000 from next co-living home. Well, one of the first questions you'd ask me is, well, Sam, how much debt do you already have? And do you have a healthy amount of debt? Well, guys, the U.S. government works exactly the same way, right? Because people lend the U.S. government money. We as citizens lend the U.S. government money. Other countries lend the U.S. government money. Other individuals around the world lend the U.S. government money. And so what ends up happening is when the U.S. government starts to take on an enormous amount of debt, those investors start to ask like scratch, like, well, how much debt does the U.S. government have? And it's like, well, they have a lot, really a lot. And they don't really have a way to pay it off. And there's not really a good strategy to reduce it. And so what happens is lenders say, sure, I'll lend you money, but I want a higher what? I want a higher interest rate. Why? Because the risk is increased. So with the risk is increased as the U.S. government takes on more and more and more and more debt, and there's no plan to pay it off, and there's no way out of it, right? You have guys that run the largest hedge fund in America called Ray Dalio, who runs Bridgewater Associates and was the founder, saying, guys, this is the thing that will eventually lead to a crash of the confidence in the US government, right? And so what happens is interest rates rise. And what happens when interest rates rise? Guys, everything gets more expensive, right? Housing gets more expensive. Rents have to increase because now buying a house costs more, right? So much more gets more expensive when interest rates rise, and interest rates have to rise because that's just how the cycle works, right? And that's my very limited understanding, but I want to give you a small piece of what now if rates rise and if things rise and if wages don't rise to match all those increasing costs, then what you have is very simply, you have people that are priced out of homes and people that are priced out of apartments and people that are priced out. And so absolutely there's going to be this gap of people that are going to become more and more and more marginalized. And it sucks, to be honest, right? And become more and more are going to need something more affordable. And I believe that, we can't fix, I personally don't feel that I can fix this at a national level, but I can fix this in my city, and you can help. And you can help by investing in co-living real estate. The One Big Beautiful Bill also said, hey, we're going to make the 100% bonus depreciation. We're going to make that permanent. We're going to make other tax cuts that when Trump was first in office, he's going to make all of those tax cuts permanent, which reduces the tax burden on people who are kind of already wealthy or who already own real estate or who are in the real estate game. And so what does that do? Right? That just frankly makes the rich, the people that own assets, get a little bit richer, but the people who don't own assets kind of get a little bit poorer. They get a little bit more left behind. And so one of my missions in sharing this with you, and I hope if you're watching this, you're probably already a real estate investor or want to be a real estate investor, but we all have to get the word out that everybody should get into the ownership game because shit's getting more expensive. I've been saying this for a while. You got tariffs, you got deportations, you got all these benefits now for owning real estate. What that's going to do, that's going to make wealthy investors like me want to buy more real estate and want to get more benefits and pay less in taxes. But a lot of that burden is going to be shifted down to the middle and the lower class. And so what you have to do, and they're going to get left out of this cycle. They're going to get left out of that prosperity that is around real estate because they don't own any real estate. So one of the missions in sharing this is I don't care if it's one house that you get in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, everybody has to become an owner of an investment property in real estate. And you need to be encouraging your friends and your family members around you to do this. And hopefully you're already an investor if you're listening to this, or if you're not, get on the bandwagon quick. Let's go. Now, this is kind of the sad news. So many people wanted this bill to protect tenants a little bit more, maybe have some federal protection so that people aren't getting evicted as much. So many people wanted this bill to do something to raise the incomes of gig workers. So there's no tax on tips for the first $25,000 of tips. But what I do want to say is that it really didn't do a lot to bring the wages of gig workers and service workers and hospitality workers up at all, right? And those are the people that have seen the least amount of wage growth. So it takes a stab at that, but I don't think that's going to be significant enough to really raise the wages as everything else gets more expensive. And so for me, we as investors have to come in, have to step in, have to try as best we can. It's not perfect world. Nothing in this bill was about providing or building more affordable housing per se. Nothing in this bill was about building more affordable housing. The government's not going to build more affordable housing for our nation. We are going to have to be responsible for that. So hopefully you enjoyed some of these tie-ins of how I think this bill will affect co-living. And frankly, what I think in a nutshell, if I just take a step back from the individual's specifics of the bill, what I really think is that this is going to push us more to an economic edge. And I think it's going to marginalize some more people. I think it's going to create even more of a gap between the wealthy and the poor. Now, what I would have liked to see is when a nation gets to this point where the gap starts to get greater and greater, there's really only a few ways to deal with that. One, you raise taxes, which no one wants to do, right? Two, you try to redistribute some of the wealth so that those at the top, right, that are successful and wealthy kind of are forced to pay a little bit more. But that's not what this bill did. And you might be a Republican and you might be a capitalist. You might say that's crazy, but there are times in a nation where a nation becomes so successful that you have to start doing some of those things. Otherwise, you get lots of riots and you get lots of unhappy people because what was a land of opportunity is harder And I think there's millions and millions and millions that can relate to what I'm saying. It's harder to get by. And I know this because I provide affordable housing and I know these people that live in these homes, right? The opportunity they have wasn't the same opportunity that was in America 50 years ago, right? It's harder. There's more regulations. There's more things that they have to overcome. And so I think the best that we can do right now is to know the government is not going to solve and fix and provide a massive solution that's going to solve the affordable housing problem or the workforce housing problem in America. And so it's up to entrepreneurs like you and me to do this as best we can. And so I think it's the best way that you can use your money right now. I'll die on this sword. The best way you can use your money is to get the highest return, but do it in a way that's solving and helping affordable housing. I had someone recently come to me and say, Sam, I hate co-living. I think you're the scum of the earth. That's not the exact word she used, but that's basically what she said, because you're taking advantage of all these people. And I said, man, I get that I'm getting a higher return than most people. But even our federal government at this point in time is not exactly looking out for the most marginalized in our society. And you can take issue with this, but this is just what's shown up in this huge bill. And so I believe that while it is not the most American thing for us all to live in homes shared by people, I do believe it is something that we all have a responsibility to do. And if you want your money to go to work doing good, and you want to do well and do good at the same time, then co-living real estate is where your money needs to be.